And I wanted to ask you about the synagogue that was discovered at Magdala,
Yeah.
right in the region of Jesus's ministry. So can you walk us through that discovery and
Sure,
what
of
it?
course.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was there when it was discovered. It was discovered in
Oh,
2009, and we were doing a tour, and students and everybody, and we stopped somewhere. I forget now, and somebody said, "Hey, they think they have found a synagogue at Magdala." I said, "You got to be kidding me," because there wasn't much to see at Magdala, and because there had been attempts to find pre-70 Magdala, but nobody had, and so the Notre Dame Center in near the Jaffa Gate in Jerusalem, they own that land at Magdala, and they were going to clear the land and build a retreat center, which fast forward to today they have, and it's a beautiful facility.
hmm,
And so by law, you have to clear the brush and look at the land and do a survey, and because they don't want bulldozers just going in and smashing things from
sure.
antiquity. And by the way, if you're a builder, you got a lot of challenges if you're trying to build in Israel,
Hmm,
widening roads, any kind of construction, not just in Jerusalem, but anywhere. You could potentially run into things from antiquity, and that's all protected. Well, they clear the brush and they clear off the ground, and guess what they see? They see three pillars sticking up from the ground. Not very much, a foot and a half, 2 feet, something like that. Three of them, but they're in a pattern where if there was a fourth over here in the corner, we'd have a rectangle, almost a square. And man, that's just screams synagogue.
wow.
Because in your typical pre-70 synagogue, and even later, you have these pillars, at least four of them, if not six, and sometimes in a big synagogue, maybe eight, but they're interior and the bench seating is around them. That's the pattern. So the excavation got underway in 2009, and by 2010, it was crystal clear a synagogue had been found.
Wow.
Not a very large one. It could seat, crowded in. There might maybe 80 people. It's not huge. And there was a little teaching room next to it. And the real big surprise was this decorated stone found right in the center of the room.
Huh.
And it was decorated with symbols that reflect the temple. And it was pointed south toward the temple. And this discovery, along with others, the mikvot that we talked about, the ritual immersion pools, and all the rest of it, that has had a huge impact. We, at the very beginning of our program, we talked about what does archaeology do? Well, it creates a context. Well, what archaeology in Galilee has done is flip the script. The old idea of Galileans being theological liberals, cosmopolitan, Hellenized, radicals, progressives, if you will, turned out they're the conservatives. They take the
Wow.
faith seriously, and when they go down for the festivals, Passover or whatever, they go down to Jerusalem. They are critical of the priesthood, who's a little too liberal and a little too cozy
Hmm,
with Roman authority and secular authorities, a little too living in palaces and living like kings and treating everybody else like dirt. And so it's like, well, wait a minute. Jesus and his following, they're the conservatives. They take scripture seriously. They're chastising the ruling priests for not fulfilling the law of Moses, for not taking care of the widows and orphans. This has had a huge impact on how we understand Jewish society in the days of Jesus. So
right.
that's been a big surprise. Well, as you know, a couple years later, a second synagogue has been found at Magdala, a larger one. And so the first one, the smaller one, was probably a little more elite, probably a selected membership. This other synagogue, which they're still excavating, probably a more public synagogue. And of course, the key, the stone key at the water's edge. It's not at the water's edge now, it's a little bit receded, but Sea of Galilee, it's been found. And we've been talking about Magdala. Well, guess what? We know somebody named Mary Magdalene.
Right. Right.
Mary, the most prominent female disciple of Jesus, and this is her town.
Wow.
And so I don't know if Jesus spoke in the first synagogue, the smaller one, maybe. He likely did speak in the second synagogue that's been found. And so now we're up to, like I said, 10, 11, 12 pre-70 synagogues. And
Amazing.
by the way, I remember when that decorated stone was identified in 2010, and it's been talked about, much published since. Somebody said, oh, well, it's a one off, you'll never find another one. It's like God was listening to that. I said, "Oh yeah." The very next year at Horvat Kur, a second decorated stone was found